Hello, everyone. Another episode of Let's Talk Worship podcast. Today, I'm super excited because I'm with one of my favorite people. Elisha is with me, and he is one of the young adults. I'm going to call you an adult that attended our camp that we just did recently. And you guys have heard me say that it was great, but I want the youth to be able to share what they experienced and uh, how what they grew, what they heard, how they grew, and how it impacted them. But before we get into the meat of the show, I want to thank all of you that have partnered with us, that have come alongside us financially, and that have liked the show, subscribe, that can comment, and all those things. So please get the word out. The show is intended to talk about what it is to minister unto the Lord. Our mission is to create an awareness of the difference between traditional worship and church worship versus hosting God, where He is an audience of one, He's the only one. And I believe that presence changes everything. So when we host Him, major things happen. So I do pray that Elisha can confirm that vision today. The other thing I want to remind everybody is that we meet every Wednesday at 11 a.m. And if you desire to partner with us, come alongside us financially, if you have youth that you would like to equip, also if you have a farm or a location that we can go do a camp, you can reach me at larosina.malvina@gmail.com. And I don't want to start the show without saying thank you to Inside Now. They are the ones that host this platform and allowed for the show to be possible. So thank you so much to Inside Out. And if you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so going to the insidenow.co. They have a website, and we don't have a lot of shows going on right now. I think mine is the only one, but soon and very soon we're going to have other topics that we're going to be talking for the future. We want to talk prophetically of what the Lord is doing. I also want to thank California Embroidery. They made our T-shirts, and we wore our T-shirts in camp, and we were known as the Captivated Group. And that was an awesome gift from California Embroidery. But if you have any printing needs or need materials for your church or whatever, go to them. They're great friends, amazing people, have supported me throughout the years. So I'm very blessed. But enough of introductions. Now I want to introduce my amazing, amazing spiritual son, I'm going to call you, Elisha Yanez. Am I saying that right?
Perfect.
Yanez. Okay, so Elisha, welcome. I want you to tell me who you are. Tell our audience how I met you, how we know each other, and why it's so important to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name's Elisha Yanez. And how Malvina and I met originally was one day I heard about this lady coming to our church. I'm like,
The
oh,
crazy woman.
go meet her, I suppose. So I ended up coming over, and it just went on from there. She immediately grabbed me by the freaking by the collar and just led me on this crazy spiritual journey. Absolutely. And I can't thank her enough, honestly.
I thank you for letting me drag you.
Of course.
Yes. So tell me more, Elisha. What was your journey before our encounter? If you don't mind sharing.
No, totally. My journey before our encounter was it was mostly me trying to figure out who I was. Prior to us meeting, I want to say a month before, wasn't a great person, to put it lightly.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing great things with my life. And eventually I got pulled back into the church and pulled back into the group that stayed there too. And a lot of that was me identifying who I was in Christ. And I couldn't really do that very well. And then again, I met you, and that made everything so much easier. Granted, it was hard everything was hard.
What would you say made it easier? What was the difference?
I think rather than doing it alone, I had, well, of course, with God, I had someone who can hear better from God
Hmm.
than I could at the time.
I think you hear better than I do.
At the time, I'll definitely say I had a hard time listening to God.
Yeah.
And so it was really encouraging to have someone near me who could help me understand what God was telling me.
Would you say you rebellion affected you? 'Cause sometime in rebellion, I think the voice of God gets muddy, gets confusing sometimes because you may have been wrestling with things um, without getting into specifics. But I think sometimes, and this is for the audience, that, especially the younger ones that are struggling with hearing God, this is the number one thing that I hear. I don't hear God. I don't know what He's saying. How do I obey if I don't know which direction I'm going? And I think a lot of the time is idolatry and rebellion gets in the way for people, and sometimes testing, the Lord tests you, and life goes in so many different directions, and we get upset. And in that, then we uh, don't hear correctly. So would you say there was some of that?
Oh, absolutely. I think through the rebellion that I had for the longest time against God and my own family,
Hmm.
when I came back to God, a lot of it was, no, if I can't see Him, if I can't, physically hear Him, then I can't hear Him. I'm not going to listen to Him. So it was a lot of questions that came up as well. Questions that I've now figured out, but
Oh, yes.
rebellion played a part into it.
So what were your expectations coming into camp?
My expectations originally, I had been a counselor to many different camps, and a lot of them were always the same. There was a really strict system. It was we had to be here at certain times. If there was a certain prayer session that was going on, we had to cancel it in order to meet times. When I went to the camp that we went to, it was a completely different experience because it was a really good experience for us to have those prayer times without being immediately cut off,
Hmm.
or without having to meet a certain deadline for certain things. I'll never forget this, but I was with a group of kids one time at an old camp, and they were giving their life to Christ, and they couldn't, or at least they weren't able to completely go through the prayer
Yeah.
because we had to lock up doors and go to sleep. Here, I was able to connect with God at any moment, at any time, whenever I needed to, and it was just a really encouraging experience.
Okay. Now, one thing is, I know you have a passion to do camps and to reach out the youth. And this camp was a little bit different because we didn't have the outreach component, and pretty much everybody who was there, I kind of recruited, knowing that they have a passion to seek the Lord. So was that something that you missed? You wish we would have done that, or you know did it impact you not being able to outreach?
I think um, at Gleanings, we were able to do some sort of outreach, and that was tremendous outreach. Um, but I think, in the terms you're talking about, is going out and speaking the gospel to others.
Yeah,
And I think that would be something really, really cool to add.
that we should do. Okay.
It would not only prepare younger generations for these sorts of things,
Yeah.
but it would ignite a fire in them to do it more.
Okay.
I've done a couple mission trips in my life, and in those trips, I came back home just on fire for God,
Yes.
just to outreach to others. So,
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's good feedback because Gleaning was amazing for me, in a very unusual and unorthodox way because we were hands on,
mhm.
and as I told you before we started recording, I had a conversation with some of the Gleaning staff, and they were so delighted uh, with our help. I think they noticed the difference in our group and how we behave. Because for me, the objective is that if we're really presence carriers, we should be better
Mhm.
than everybody else out there. but also the places should be left better than when we came in.
Absolutely.
And I think the gardens were a great example. Shelly was very happy because she never expected. Actually, we didn't volunteer for the gardens. I volunteered for the food, but our booking was really to help with the soups and things. But when we got there, I don't know if you remember, she said, "I need some help in the garden," and we really said, "Yeah, sure, we can do both."
Yeah.
And we did so much in just one portion of the day. She wasn't expecting that much help. So I am really happy to hear their feedback that we got to do so much and that they really were impacted, not just by us, but also by the work we did.
Hmm.
So, a question, Elisha. So, as you were in camp, what was the moment in where you felt? Did you feel a shift? Number one, and how would you describe that moment?
Oh man. Um, I definitely felt a shift. Definitely. And it was almost like the tectonic plates of my spirit just absolutely smashed each other.
Oh, that's
And
so cool.
the moment that I felt it in was when it was, I think it was the first time we decided to, or no, it was the second time. Because the first time when
First time you were not going to play.
we got together to worship, I wasn't going to. Um, and I did it anyways, but it wasn't so much in a spiritual context. It was more of a, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's see how it goes. Second time we did it, or either the third, second time, possibly, yes.
I think it was the second time.
Yeah. For some reason, I just felt the Lord tell me, be silent. So I was. So I stayed silent. Esther was singing, and I believe that was the day Caden was there.
Yes.
Um, and I stayed silent, and I felt God completely come over me and tell me, listen, this is how worship's supposed to be. This is how you're going to do it, and this is how it's going to continue going on from here. So,
Mm,
okay, we'll do.
yes.
So next day, when we did worship again, I just let my heart out, and let Him take control completely. And that was the shift that I needed so long. And
Yes.
frankly, if I hadn't gone on the camp, I don't think I really would have gotten to that point. Not till later. So.
Yes. Yes. It sometimes it requires that special environment
Hmm.
for the shift. Yeah, I'm so glad. When I was interviewing Kaden, I mentioned that to her because for me, these things are an experiment because we're really breaking the rules of what we've been trained to do. So you don't have any music, you don't have any music sheet or listening devices. You have to let the Lord lead. And if you notice, there was no one stood on anybody's toes.
Oh yeah.
No, the musicians could go and you guys could sing without interrupting each other.
Hmm.
And there was no one leading. Really, the Lord was leading.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it's magnificent. It's amazing. But I
Amen.
was sharing with her because she only was there for a portion of it that you guys didn't know her. You don't know what church she goes to. You don't know what she believes. You don't know. And there was also Amy who came. You guys have never met her. Um, Totally different geographical locations. You guys come from very different cultures. You guys do different things. She's a California girl. You guys are from Washington, completely different. Also different ethnicities, because like Amy, she's from Mexico. She's completely different. Now I know them and I know where they come from, but I didn't tell you guys anything.
Hmm.
And what I felt was part of my experiment. It was, if we don't, it doesn't matter what doctrine or church or upbringing or how you've been trained to worship, or even if you know the songs, it doesn't really matter. Because if it's God leading us, we should be able to all get together and do it.
Hmm.
And that day when she came, I was able to see it, because I mean, you guys grabbed your microphones and you went at it. And I don't know, it just happened. And it was, to me, it was really proving. that point. By the way, also age differences. We have adults. My son is almost 30 years old. We had you. We had Gideon. I mean, we had so many different age, uh, but you couldn't tell who's female, male, old, young. If one in Christ, it didn't make a difference. So
Absolutely.
for me, that day it was really awesome. So I'm glad to hear you say that that was the day of the shift, because that day was really intentional that way. You know, then the Lord lead, because I kind of gave you guys instruction the first day, but then it was like, you guys have to do your thing, because that's how we prove that it's really God doing it. You know. Now the next question I have for you, Elisha, is what did you take? What did the Lord reveal to you in camp? Is there anything specific that He spoke to you in your heart? And I do want you to go into how He revealed to you the power in your voice. So if you can share whatever revelation He gave you there, it'd be great for people to hear.
Absolutely. Um, I definitely, I definitely felt like I saw a picture that God was showing me,
Hmm.
and that's sometimes how He'll do it. He'll do it in pictures, or He'll just throw words at me to try. And the picture that I saw was just, I've always been, told that I'm supposed to lead, that I will lead for God.
Yeah.
And I felt in this picture that opening, I was leading people in worship, leading people through just, oh man, it's so hard to describe because it was so, um, but not only leading people through worship, but just leading people in general with my
Mhm.
voice. And
You're a natural leader.
mhm,
So people are going to follow you, your posture, your voice, even, you have a deep voice, so you have a command,
mhm,
but natural.
right.
But you're saying He's now showing you spiritually you'll do that.
Exactly. And definitely that trip was kind of like a wake up call. I felt like He was like, all right, you've been sleeping on this for too long. It's time to wake up. It's time to,
Yeah,
okay,
commissioning.
God will do.
Yeah, it's a moment, I would say it was a commissioning for you.
Mhm.
Now, had you done any singing before?
I had done singing, but this was only in high school, and I did this like, choir class, and I only sang Latin. So I
So
never,
you had never done anything like you did in camp.
never, never, never.
How
So,
was that? Can you tell me more about that? Mhm.
well, I just, it's so hard to explain because it was so, it was very different. I've always, I've always loved music. I've always loved to sing. I've always, loved to use my voice in that sort of way, but I've never done it for the Lord.
Mhm.
And I just felt like I was able to reach new areas in my vocal just range in general that I didn't think I could. And
Mhm.
that was merely because I was doing it for God.
Yeah.
And I felt like He gave me a better access to my own vocals, to my own self,
Yes.
just by worshiping Him. And so I've never been able to sing like that.
Yeah.
Ever since the camp, I've been able to do it. And I've been doing it on Friday nights mostly. Um,
Mm.
and it's been so good. It's been
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah. Well, having been there and hearing you and have seen you trying to force you to do it before and couldn't convince you, it was so amazing uh, to hear your voice projecting the depth of your voice, because like you said, I think the Lord tapped into you in such a unique way, and he was just looking at a different person, really. And your voice was so deep, so deep. There were groans and sounds you were making with your voice that it was just so impressive. And also not just impressive to listen to, but what he did to us. That
Mhm.
because we were all there corporately worshiping, but also watching. It was almost like hearing the voice of God at a different level. And I think there was a moment where I think it was Zena who said, "But I would like to hear him," because there was so much noise and everybody was doing their own thing. Because that's part of the objective. The objective is you and God. It comes corporately because the Lord is leading, but really is you have to do what God tells you to do. If we can't hear you, this is between you and God. A lot of the times we wanted to see, okay, what is he saying? Because it was so powerful. We wanted to know what was in that. But, for me, what the Lord was doing was sowing the spirit, that it doesn't matter if I couldn't make the words out. It was more God himself doing it in my body, in my spirit. And I think that's what was really lovely. It was so deep, you know. Experiencing what you guys did for me has been life changing, and it took me a long time to come down from that experience, because you in the spirit you're like here, and then all of a sudden you got to come to regular life. It gets really hard, but your voice had that effect. It was so incredibly amazing.
That's
um, Also how you were able to harmonize with the girls. I
mm,
think it was really special, because now I've never practiced. There was no practice. We didn't do sound check as we normally do. I mean, it was just okay, I guess the mics are working. But it was more, so the improvisation of the moment, the words that were coming out of your mouth, you know so have you been able what have you done with what you heard? Let's
oh boy, what have I done? Oh my gosh. Well, I've just been going crazy with writing songs for him. And
Good.
that's mostly what I've been doing is just writing lyrics, writing songs about him, for him, and my struggles with, my struggles through the journey. Um, a lot
Mhm.
of testimony music. And not only that, but I've used this at Friday nights, especially where the original concept was to do exactly what you showed us to do. And that's what we did for the longest time. And then we fell back into reading off of a paper.
Mhm.
And one day, once we got back, we just decided, let's just do it.
Let's
Screw
do
it. Let's just do it. So we did. Patty stuck on immediately, talked so vibrant in it all. Presley was drumming away. We brought Gideon up to do his synth as well. That was
it.
amazing.
Yeah,
It was,
I love that. He was incredible.
oh yeah, it was an amazing night, and nobody in our audience had seen it before, and it was such a great opportunity for them to really connect with Christ. And I'd seen people who usually don't have their eyes closed, they had their eyes closed.
They were touched.
They, it
That's
was incredible.
awesome. Yeah, I want to encourage you to continue, because the more you give, the more it grows. The more the Lord gives you, because it's a moving river. A lot of people learn one technique and then they stay there, and then they become stagnant and then repetitive. But if you keep doing it, it becomes beautiful. It's the anointing continues to flow. The other thing is, how do you feel? I know you're very prophetic. So, did the Lord reveal anything to you prophetically outside of the songs? I know those are prophetic, of course, He's speaking. What else did He show you anything specific?
Um, I remember he showed me that picture of myself leading other people,
Hmm.
but through that, I also saw just army, not myself necessarily leading them, but armies of people getting together to worship like how we did in
Mm.
the streets and neighborhoods, and just a massive amount of people that
Yeah.
I can't put a number on, just all worshiping the Lord through what they hear, not what they see in front of them, but what they're hearing from God. And it was like it talks in the Bible. I couldn't tell you where, of the angels singing and
Hmm.
harmonizing all together. And it's just this beautiful noise. But I feel like what I was seeing, but here on earth, what we're supposed to do. And it was just incredible. It was eye opening, and yeah, just speechless of how great it was.
I know. And one thing I thanks for sharing that, because I have had that same vision, by the way. I have seen the armies. I'm usually on a cliff, almost like on top,
Yeah,
and you see the crowds of people, and they're all in one accord.
right.
So I can confirm that vision. But the other thing that to me uh, was incredible is knowing how prophetic you are, you know, uh, that you were able to step in that gift through worship, because you can give somebody a word, you can prophesy to people and do that, but in that corporate setting, it's almost, I what I saw was the Lord using you as a vessel for us to, because you became that voice, you became that sound, that song, that thing. And I could see you, riding away as things were coming down. So for me, that was incredible, because it is a new release of the same gift you've always had, because you were born to be this way. But I was so blessed. So to watch God, he was not a person who lay hands on you. He was not a person that prayed for you, or it was the release of the Lord over you. It was the Lord ministering to us. So we were ministering to him, but he was ministering to us. I love that verse in Zephaniah that says, he rejoiced over you with singing. And that's what I kept seeing is him. There was such joy. Camp for me was, if I were to define it, it was joy. It was fun. It was I have fun. But also, we were able to get to know each other, to fellowship with each other. Um, the kids got to be kids, which
Yeah,
is also great. So it wasn't all, even that was worship to me, because
yeah.
people get to enjoy each other, enjoy the food. Sunset worship was amazing.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh,
Up
if I
on
could
the hill.
do that all over again, I would.
Yes, that was so beautiful, because you get to see the land in a new way. Yeah,
Oh,
that for me, I'm a stickler for the land. But so let's go now to, if you have to explain this to somebody, if you have to go to a parent or a pastor, or after the experience you had, how would you describe it, knowing what you know?
let me set my camera up one more time. There we go. All right, now I can use my hands because I'm a hand talker.
Now you're free.
Um, but I've thought about this too, because I do want to bring people to this as well. I want to bring my sisters at some point too.
Yes.
Um, but the biggest thing I want to say to people about this camp is this is a chance for people to enter into what God has on their scroll, and
Mhm.
what that means is basically what God has planned for you, what God has planned for you in His kingdom. You get to inherit that. You get to step into that, and
Yes.
that's a beautiful, beautiful duty to be able to accomplish.
Yes.
And as I've been doing it, it has been such an amazing opportunity, not only to get to know God better, but to get to know my fellow Christian as well,
Yeah.
to get to know my fellow disciple as well. And if you want someone to have a better relationship with Christ, just in general, take them to the camp, because that's where my turning point with God was there. And I don't think I would have had it anywhere else, to be honest with you. So
Yes.
I could go on for hours about this, but keep it short. Um,
Yes.
Summary is it's an amazing experience, and it's so good for you, so good for you spiritually.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. And it lingers.
Oh,
You know,
you,
it
you
lingers. Yeah.
sure.
Because, sometimes we go to conferences or meetings or church activities or something. And in that moment, we feel it. But
Mm,
then, life hits and we kind of become a little dull. quickly, and I've seen it with kids that go to youth camp, where the regular traditional youth camp, where they feel the Lord, they get saved, they're, but then the discipleship kind of ends. And that's another thing that, well, you guys know this camp is not the first time I've seen you. I've been going and seeing you guys for quite some time, because I believe that you cannot just throw somebody into this. There's got to be a discipleship. Like you were saying when we met, there's got to be listen, let's talk. There's an accountability. I believe that that's part of, if Apostle Paul were to be doing this, he'll call you out on no, let's do things right. And I think that's important, because a lot of people call me and say, let's do a camp. Well, wait, who are you and where you come from? You know what I mean? Because there's got to be relationship. I think it's important that we are fellowshipping with each other, especially the people that are going to put it together or that are going to help with this. So that's one thing that I like, to be relational, because if there is no relationship, then we're just functional.
Yeah.
We're just ministering, and also getting to know you. For me, I know you were impacted, but I know you and I know what you carry. So it matters to me, because it's fruit to me, is a part of the harvest, also the community that we have. Like you said, you only saw Caden for a minute, but then in the spirit, you guys are very much connected. And even if you're not necessarily physically in the same location, there is I call it resonates, it's kind of like instruments that are vibrating, because we were all together in that environment. So, for me, that's one thing that we can continue doing that, even though we're not together in the same location, So, what would you like to share that you haven't, to our audience, to hear your heart, to hear? Doesn't have to be about camp. If there is anything that is heavy, as Prophet Elisha, I'm going to make you publicly. Let's commission the child. As a prophet, things that you may be hearing from God that you would like to share, is yours. You can say anything you want.
Absolutely. One thing I'd like to preface that I forgot to say was that this camp, it isn't like a usual camp where, like you said, you leave and then you become stagnant again. When I saw Caden and Amy step into their gifts, that made me want to step into my gift.
Exactly.
In front of you happen, especially with the first day they both came, they immediately just walked into it like it was nothing. I'm like, I want to do that. I want that like that.
But let me tell you, they were you at one point. I had to harass them. What happened is they've known me for some time, but the story repeats. With Amy, for her to paint, she will do it quietly. She'll be hidden. She wouldn't do it, and she would show it to me in the hiding. And it was always, I'm afraid. What if they don't like it? But with Kaden was the same thing. Because there was a time where this was a wild. And I didn't have a lot of wisdom, and a lot of things happen around us, so they will guard themselves. And I used to tell her, you wanted to do this, here's the microphone. And they look at me like, oh my God. So they have already suffered the Malvina effect, So, but they know me at this point. We've been walking for some time, and I love the fact that they feel comfortable. That there's a trust, because I also believe there's got to be a trust. You have to know the person's spirit and their intentions. I don't always get it right, but I try. But they know I'm not going to do anything to hurt them. And that all I want is what God has. Sometimes what God does doesn't look pretty, but it is Him, So I think what you saw was they had already been equipped. But I needed to prove that they could come in with you guys and still work no matter who they are, even if you don't know them and never experienced this. And I think that was the beauty of it.
Yeah, and it inspired me to step
That's
deeper,
awesome.
and I know it inspired Izzy and it inspired Presley as well. Like that
Yeah.
was crazy to us. Like we'd never
Yeah.
seen it before.
Yes. Yeah.
And I guess there's one more thing. Um, with how the world is going, how
Mm.
things are getting and how real they are getting, I just encourage you to keep trust in God, because that He will be the ladder to your cliffside. He will be the foundation to the sand everywhere else. Like it is so important to have that relationship with Him, because things are getting real and things are getting scary. I'm scared, to be honest with you.
Mm.
God is really the only thing that can hold us still in the storm. So
Yes.
absolutely stay connected with Him.
Yes. And you know, you raised a great point, Elisha. One thing I'm telling you, and I'm telling the audience, it looks scary, but if we are grounded in Him, we have to know that He will guide our steps and even give us answers in the midst of the tragedies, you know. So I believe that He's raising you guys up. You know, that army that you saw in your vision. He's raising an army of youth that has that passion for Him.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's another thing I see in the younger generation. There is a passion that's uncontainable. When you tap into it, it's hard to
Goes.
you pursue it. You go all the way. You know what I mean? For us, we got ourselves. I'm older. Oh my God, what are they going to think? The church, the thing. You know, we have a lot of constraints. But what I've seen with your generation is that there's a freedom, there's a passion that could be used for the wrong reasons. You know, that rebellion and that anger and that bitterness can be very intense for your generation. But when you tap into the Lord, you guys don't hold back. And that is something that will help our nation. We're in a Western nation, but I think it also will spread through the nations. And I think it's something that we have to tap into it, and we have to support each other. So when you're down, you know, I may be able to help you, or the other way around. I also believe that your generation can prophesy to my generation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been in church too long, and I think we, not that there's anything wrong with church, but like you said, the world is changing. Things since COVID, things are not the same. So, you know, we need a fresh breath of God. And that's where we're going this year. It's a breath. I would tell your dad, he's the breath of God. Because there are certain people that have that ability, and we need that. So, your generation has a fresh utterance, a fresh anointing, because you haven't lived what we lived.
Mm-hmm.
And in that passion you have, because we were more of a church era, and I think that era is shifting, but you guys are entering into that new movement of the Lord, which is Him really breathing through us. And you guys know how to discern that very well, way better than us. And I think the more you guys do this, I believe things change. I don't think that house we were at will never be. It's never going to be the same, because we brought God in there.
Yes.
The place that we went to gleanings is not going to be the same. We went there. We are never going to be the same. You know, so I believe the region and even what you take home is never the same. So, you know, it's the God continues to create and to do new things.
Absolutely.
So thank you for saying that. So anything else before I say goodbye to our audience?
I have hundreds of things I could say, but
Well, say one.
man, I gotta pick out which one's the most important.
That's right. What does God want you to say? Not the most important. What God wants you to say.
I think what God is really urging me to say is, keep in contact with the younger generations, just like what you've been saying. It is so important, because when we're not here, they're here.
Yes.
They're going to be leading the world. They're going to be leading. They're going to be leading people to Christ at some point. And so it's better to help them tap into their scroll there.
Yeah, they're what they God wrote about them. God wrote a story, and they should know their story.
Exactly. To tap into it now rather than for when you're 40 years old. That
Yeah.
that's scary.
Yes.
So absolutely stay connected with the younger generation.
Yes.
They are everything. They are.
Yes. They're they're a good soil to invest in.
Mhm.
Well, Elisha, thank you very much for taking the time and being open with and being so candid, sharing. Thank you so much for coming with us and participating, and hope to see you very soon. But I want to say goodbye to our audience. Thank you so much for being with us today, for listening. Share the episode. You heard Elisha. I'm not the one promoting. I didn't pay him for this. He
Absolutely.
said this on his own.
Absolutely.
So, and tune in with us on our next episode. We will continue discussing what it is to minister unto the Lord. We're probably going to do a little bit on Colossians. I do think this coming year, the book of Colossians is going to be key because we have to keep our eyes on things above because heaven doesn't look like this and we need to bring heaven on earth. So thank you so much to all of our sponsors. Thank you, Elisha. Thank you, Inside Now. And we are going to see you guys on our next episode. So thank you very much for coming and listening. Until next time, and be blessed.